Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good early morning. If you're watching this at 2 a.m. and your baby's screaming and you can't figure out why. We've had some recent changes in our life situation. We had a baby 4 weeks ago, and this video is to talk about some of the things that I've learned in the first 4 weeks of the baby. I'm told that the lack of sleep helps remove a lot of your memories of how it is, so this is an opportunity for me to record it. And who knows, maybe when my daughter gets older, I can play this and she can get a sense for how difficult she was in the first 2 weeks. The first thing I want to say is I love my daughter. There are moments when it's like, the heavens open up and the sunlight comes down and it's just on us two while I've got her in my arms and she's being cute and sweet. But the reality is much more of the time if she's not asleep or nursing or having brief moments where she's playing and happy, she's screaming or crying, and we're sort of trying to problem solve and soothe for hours a day. Now again, I don't resent her for that. That's the only way she knows how to communicate, so it is what it is. But I think, and particularly at our age, parents are not given a very realistic idea of what to expect in the first 4 weeks, and indeed maybe even for the first 2 months, depending on what situation your baby is. We're fairly sure she's not colicky or anything, so we've ruled out that it's a health issue. And looking on Reddit and reading through these sleep forums, we've noticed that that most parents at our age, most parents that are going through this are all going through the same thing. It's all a very similar case. So anyway, without further ado, here's the things that I've learned. Number one, low expectations are the key to surviving the first few months. We expected that she would be ready to be trained when she came out of the womb. When she, like a few days after we brought her home, we were sort of shocked that she wasn't able to be trained. And I say trained, we're not talking like training an animal, but in some ways we are, like a baby animal. We learned that there is a fourth trimester. After the third trimester, your baby still has much of the same reflex and automatic behavior programmed in as they display in the womb, and that being born doesn't just switch all of that off and then open them up to being taught things. They're going to react and respond by instinct and by reaction and reflex. And so what we ended up having to do after 2 weeks of trying and failing to meet these high expectations that we had, we'll be able to get her to sleep regular, and we'll get her to nap at these times, and we'll get her to feed at these times. We ended up just throwing all that out the window. My younger brother was actually instrumental in that. He said, look, if she's happy, or rather if she's healthy and she's thriving, she's surviving, she's eating and pooping and getting heavier, you won. You did it. That's a success, because the crying and the craziness that comes with some of that, the epic meltdowns and the lack of sleep for you guys, that's just part of the newborn experience. So one of the things that I've learned is set your expectations really, really low. And this will also help you from being disappointed or frustrated when your expectations are not met by reality. Which is one of the things that we found in the first 2 weeks, was just we were at our wits' end, things not being able to work. The second thing that I wanted to communicate that we've learned is that you need to ask for help. People are bad at asking for help, especially in this country. It seems in the West, people are bad at asking for help because it's a sign of vulnerability, I think. But people are very willing to give it. You can cheat that by asking for help and getting it readily all the time. Family and friends and co-workers, whatever it takes. Hey, could you come over and just sit with me and chat for 30 minutes while the baby's asleep? Or family members offering you to bring you frozen meals, or to come over and babysit for an hour while you go to Kroger to pick up groceries, or whatever it is. You need to take a shower, or you want to get a nap and you haven't slept all night and you want to get a couple of hours in, grandma can come over. And some people don't have that resource, which is why I would say that if you're thinking about having a baby or you're in the pregnancy stage, now's the time for you to start setting up groups and start looking at meetup groups or groups of people that are in the same boat as you, so that you can start to offer that support and also receive some of that support. People will go a long way to help you. We've had our friends and family have been excellent. They've shown up with food. They've shown up to just socialize and visit. We actually had one visit where they showed up with a bunch of board games, and the board games just sat in the box because all we really wanted to do was just talk to people that weren't this screaming potato or each other. So asking for help, get over your how humble you feel, deal with feeling vulnerable, and ask for help because it'll help, and you'll feel a lot better as a result. Supported, you'll feel supported. One of the other things that I've learned, this comes along with having low expectations. The first 2 months are the shit months. It's not easy. The baby's going to do things that are going to make you angry. Well, that was the wife coming home from a walk with the baby where she was completely melting down. So, anyway. The point that I was at was you're in the shit. I've seen that on Reddit a lot. I see it on the Beyond the Bump subreddit. Amidst the political screeching and diarrhea that happens on Reddit, there's some good points and some useful information there. And one of the most useful things that I read was you're in the shit. And I have used the analogy of boot camp or a recruit course training to sort of describe it. It's you show up at recruit course and you don't know what to expect. And the first 4 weeks suck ass. You sleep deprived. You're mingling with people you don't really know. You're getting to know people. You're learning to adapt to the new systems and the new requirements. You got all different things and that are happening that are very different from the life that you had before. And that first 4 or 5 weeks, they suck. And then at the end of the first 4 or 5 weeks, you're kind of at your lowest point. And for me, when I was on my recruit training years ago, week 4 was around when I was starting to think I might just quit. I don't know if I want to be here. I'm not happy being yelled at all the time, and I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. I feel like everything I do is wrong, and that's common with the baby situation. Is you like today, for example, we've tried every trick in the book to get her to stay down for a nap, and she just won't take it. She'll fall asleep on you, but with me having to work and the wife having sort of C-section recovery, it's not always possible to have the baby on you all the time. So you can't be up and walking around doing the come on baby. You can't do that 24 hours a day. So it's going to be shit. And you're going to feel like shit, and you're going to have low moments. And the sooner you accept that, and the sooner you sort of just realize that the only way to get through this is just to get your head down and survive, the sooner you can kind of bring your low expectations into line with what you're doing, and then that room for disappointment kind of closes up. And you'll still be frustrated. Like last night, it took us 3 times to get her down before she went to sleep properly for the night. And then she slept for, what was it, 6 or 7 hours? Took us a long time to get there, but we got there. We just had to keep going at it and coming at it with the same consistency, staying calm, just being like, this is what it is. We're not getting through this if we keep freaking out because she's not acting like an adult. Another thing that I've learned is that it's okay to not like your baby sometimes. In fact, in the first 2 weeks, I didn't like my baby very much at all. I loved her to death, but I didn't like her very much. And part of that was I didn't know her, and I still really don't. We have moments of connection, and there's definitely like beautiful moments in there, but the vast majority of it is just feels like problem solving or supporting the wife, doing the soothing and the feeding and stuff. And it's okay for you to have those feelings. What's not okay is to act on those feelings. And I'll share a brief story. When she was melting down one night, I went in to take care of her and let the wife stay asleep or let her stay in bed. And I went in, and she just wouldn't stop crying, and nothing I was doing was working. And I changed her diaper, gave her a bottle. She didn't want to have the bottle. She didn't want to be held upright. She didn't want to be held flat. She didn't want to be like, she would only take being bounced on the ball diagonal position, and the minute that I tried to shift or move or anything, the crying just started right back up again. and she pooped herself. And so when I went back to change the diaper, I found that I was starting to be more rough with her, like not dangerously rough, but I wasn't as careful with putting her down and with her legs. I was just kind of being not careless per se, but a little less careful than I should have been. And the wife came in because she could hear her crying, and she was like, "How's it going?" And I was like, "I'm getting angry. I'm actually getting angry. I was physically getting angry. The crying was driving me crazy." So, so she took over, and I went out and puffed on my vape and sat outside and got my head right and came back in and was able to be supportive. The important thing is that you allow yourself to have those feelings. It's okay to have those. And when those thoughts go across your head, like, God, I regret having a kid, and specifically for us with how late we started with kids, which is the next point that I'll get to, the frustration level was really high, and I was bottling it up, and that was causing me to start, like, the need for that anxiety and stress to come out somehow. Normally it would be the gym, or it would be a run, or go for a big walk or something, and not having that outlet at that particular moment meant that I was like, my body was like, hey, let's get this stress out. The target is this baby, right? And I'm like, no, that we can't do that. So allow yourself to have the thoughts, allow yourself to have the feelings, and then just let them go. Take time when you're feeling like that, especially if you're dealing with the kid, to take time to go and sit by yourself. It's not going to kill them for you to have 10 minutes to yourself outside, with a drink of water, and if you're smoking, you have a cigarette or whatever it is that you do, that's your coping mechanism. While they cried out for a few minutes, that's fine, because if you're not calm, if you're not collected, and you're not in the right headspace, you're going to do more damage to your kid than leaving them to cry for 10 minutes is going to do by a long shot. So yeah. The next point that we learned was the later you leave it, the more difficult the transition will be. For us, we had a very routine, very, not rigid, but it was very consistent. When we both got up, when we both went to bed, the nights that we had date nights, the nights that we went out and hung out with friends, the times that we would go to the gym, when we would go, what we would do, how long we would be there, the people who would come over and hang out with us. Like, we had a pretty good routine. And when the baby came along, we were really struggling to deal with the change in the routine. I think that was the biggest frustration for us, was that your old life, all the things that you're comfortable with, all of your coping mechanisms, and your early morning coffees, or your Breaking Bad at 7 o'clock, or whatever it is that's your sort of your de-stress mechanism, is useless to you now in many ways, because it's not happening at the same time. You can't always rely on that structure anymore, and your life becomes kind of anarchic. You're lost in the chaos. So you're going to deal with that, but it's going to be a lot harder the older you get, because you're more set in your ways. And that adjustment, as it is with all human beings, that change is going to be very difficult. And the longer you leave it, the more difficult it's going to be, particularly if you have a lot of routines already. Eventually, the baby will respond to routines, but newborns, like I said, it's a new baby. It's a new baby every day. So she doesn't give a shit about your routines. The only routine that we've been able to keep consistently throughout the course of time is getting her to go, we take her up to start the bedtime routine around 7:30. How long it takes her to get to bed, anyone's guess. What's going to work that night? Is it white noise? Is it nursing? Is it going to be me walking her around for an hour in my arms? Who knows? That's the only thing that we've been able to be consistent on, because everything else has been completely random, or at least it's felt completely random. And so if you're watching this and you're thinking about having kids, do it sooner rather than later. If you have an environment where you can raise them, you'll have a much easier time adjusting to the big changes that are going to happen. If you're about to have a kid and you're in your mid to late 30s, it's going to hurt. You're going to miss the routines that you have. For me, being able to play video games when I want, for as long as I want, was a coping mechanism. And I don't have that. I can't remember the last time. I think it was I think I watched video games. I think I watched someone play Tekken 7 for like 30 minutes when she was asleep on the couch. That's the closest I've gotten in the last week and a half to playing a video game. Because she won't, being still in my arms, she'll fall asleep fine, but once I stop and I try to like do something else, she'll feel me not minding her, and then she'll start fussing, and yeah, so anyway. Um, Another thing that's absolutely king, like maybe even more so than setting your standards low and setting your expectations low, is keeping, especially if you're breastfeeding, or actually really only if you're breastfeeding, is making sure that the breast health and the nipple health is top priority when it comes to self-care for mum. The nipple health is a bottleneck for a lot of things that work to keep the baby soothed and keep her fed. And if mum is not looking after her nipples, and she's not going to lactation, if lactation is painful for her, or if it's been difficult and she's not getting professional help, that's going to create a lot more problems down the line. Particularly, the inability, like babies soothe a lot on the boobs, so not being able to soothe is going to be a problem. Night nursing is one of the best ways to get a baby to fall asleep at night. We've found, at least for our baby anyway, and if her nipples they're not in good shape, then she can't nurse, which means we lose that tool, we lose that connection with the baby, and there she goes again. She's still in the middle of trying to get her to fall asleep. It's been since 10 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock, 1:15 now. She's been up for 3 hours, just can't get her to sleep. She'll fall asleep, but she won't stay asleep. Anyway, so fellas, if you're watching this, encourage your wife to really take care of herself, and included in that is breast care. Lanolin cream, silver colloidal caps that they can put over their nipples, whatever it takes to keep those things up and running and pain-free as possible. Encourage and support her to do those things. And on the topic of self-care, take time to give each other space, 1 hour a day, where they get to go and have a long shower, and toenails, fingernails, hair, whatever. And girls, same for your guy. Give him an hour to go play video games or go to the gym or something to get that apeness out, because if I don't work out for 3 days, my anxiety and my stress when dealing with her reflects in her when I'm trying to soothe her myself, and she picks up on that. So I find if I don't get gym time, it makes it a lot harder for me to provide that care for her. And then finally, newborns are simple. They're simple creatures. They're not complicated by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I'm sure once you dive in much deeper into it, they're complicated. But my experience has been that they're simple, and what that means is they don't need too many different things. You'll have different methods of dealing with them and different methods of soothing them and all that, and it's kind of, you just kind of run through the list as you're trying to make it all work. But if you really think about what it is that you're doing, it's simple. What it isn't is easy or predictable. These first 4 weeks have been a real challenge, and it's been the unpredictability, the lack of consistency in what happens. Like I said, 2 nights ago we had her down. She was down first time off the boob, 8:15 till 6 o'clock in the morning, just about. She was out for a long time. And the following night she had a big meltdown. Took us a couple of times to get her down, but then she was down for 9 hours. And then the following night she was only down for about 7. Prior to that, it's been 3, 2 hours, 4 hours, sometimes not at all. It is what it is. It's simple, but it's not predictable, and it's not easy. So I think, again, going back to having your expectations low, for me, that was one of the most important things that I did, was with myself and with my wife, reminding her, like, this is the way it is right now. We just have to keep going. We have to keep at it. Our expectations have got to be low. Is she feeding? Is she pooping? Is she getting some sleep? Then we did okay. Our pediatrician says everything's fine. The lactation nurses say that everything's fine. She's gaining weight. Then we won, and that's success for us. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the first of probably what will be some fairly regular videos, I imagine. Now that the baby's here and we're learning all this new stuff, like I said, I want to record it for posterity's sake, so that when my sleep-addled brain forgets all of these things later on, that I have a reference to come back to and look at, and something to present to her as well. Be like, hey, here's here's what I learned in the first 4 weeks that you were alive. You were a turd most of the time for the first 4 weeks, but there were moments when I felt it. All right, well, yeah, thanks a lot, Internet. Thanks a lot, YouTube, for providing this platform for me to vent about things and talk about things that have come up. And here's to the next one.